In this lesson, I will show you how to run Playwright test using command line interface or just terminal. For example, how to run all test, or how to run test for the specific browser, or how to run test in headed mode or headless mode, how to run the Playwright report using command line interface as well. So those commands are very useful when you need to trigger test, for example, in CI/CD server. This is the way how you can trigger different tests that way. So in this lesson, you will learn how to do that. Let's get into it. So in the previous lesson, we installed the framework from scratch, and we have example-spec.ts with 2 tests as an example. So let's run those tests. How to do that? So we go to terminal and type npx playwright test and hit enter. And Playwright will run those tests for us automatically, headlessly. You see all of them passed, and we see 6 tests passed. Why is that? Because by default, Playwright will run those tests in 3 browsers. Browsers are defined in the config.ts. If we scroll this down, we see the projects. Project Chromium, Firefox, and WebKit. So in all 3 browsers, in parallel, those tests, these 2 tests will be executed. That's why we have 6 tests. And we see that if we run npx playwright show report, we can check the report. So let's do this. npx playwright show-report. And report is opened as HTML page. We can see that 2 tests executed in Chromium, 2 in Firefox, and 2 in WebKit. And if we click on any of those tests, we have a before hook, then we have 2 steps of our test that shows the piece of code that was executed, and the after hook is like a tear down method. So that's it. Okay, how to run the test for the specific browser. So you call the same command npx playwright test, but specify a project that we want to use. So let's say project equals to Chromium. Chromium is a Chrome browser. Run it again, and we see that just 2 tests are executed, and they are executed headlessly, as you may notice. So how to execute test headed? So we will see the actual browser. So we will open this command, and in this example, we need to add a command -- headed. So during the execution, Playwright will run a browser, and we will see the actual execution. So you see it happened really quick. As I mentioned, Playwright works very quick, and those tests are pretty short. I can run it one more time, but you saw the browser showed up, it executed 2 tests and tear down. So what else you can do through the command line? Let's say that you have several test files under the test folder. For example, we have example-spec.ts, and let's say we will have few more files. But if you want to execute just one specific file, this is how you should do it. So you type npx playwright test, then space, and then just provide the name of the spec file that you want to run. example.spec.ts space, project is Chromium. Let's run it headless. This time I run it, and we can see 2 tests are executed because we called this particular spec file. And also you can call a specific name of the test. For example, let's say we want to run just has title test. How to do that? So we use the same command, but I remove the name of the spec file and I replace it with this -g space double quotes, and then inside of the double quotes I provide the name of the test, has title. Click enter, and we can see 1 test is executed. Let me open the report, npx playwright show report. Here's our report, has title is executed. And let me show you, by the way, what happened if we introduce a failure into our test. So here at line number 7, I expect that page to have title playwright, but I change it playwright 1, right? So I want to fail it on purpose. And if I will run this test right now, it is running, and test is failed. So and I go to the report, and here we go what I see in the report. That expected pattern was a Playwright, but the actual was this. So our pattern Playwright1 was not as part of the string, that's why it failed. And it's showing the part of the line of code in the report where exactly it failed. All right, so let me fix this back. And two more things I want to show you. Let's say we have a test has title that we want to ignore from the execution. How to do that? We can use the tag test.skip. And if I run this spec file now, you can see in the report one test passed and one is skipped. And let me show you how it's displayed in the reporter. So if you look in the reporter, we see that 2 tests, but one was skipped. And we can see here in the filter skipped 1 and passed 1. Passed test has a check mark, skip test doesn't have anything. If we open the skip test, we see the skip message. This is how it's displayed in the reporter. And if you want, for example, run just a specific test as part of your test suite. Let's say you work on the debugging and working on this particular test, and when you run the test, you want to run only this particular test. How to do this? Same way, very easy. You add test.only, and if you run the command to execute this spec file, only one test was executed, one test passed. So we ran only this one, and the remaining of the tests, either this test or if we have more tests than this, they would be just ignored. We would run only this test. So that's it. That's the main commands that you can use in the terminal to run your Playwright test, specify the spec files, skip the test, run specific test, and so on. These commands are mostly useful when you want to run your tests on continuous integration server, or if you want to quickly run certain tasks headlessly on your computer. When you work on test development, more comfortably work with the UI mode. And how to run your test in UI mode, I will show you in the next lesson. So, see you in the next lesson.